wasn't moving. And I kept asking my general practitioner if she would send me to a doctor who would help me to explain what is going on with me, because as an athlete, you know your body very well, and I wanted to get some answers why I have these tremors and slowness of movement. And I said, can you find me a doctor who has Parkinson's? Because it would really help me with my questions. She found me a doctor that has Parkinson's. Unfortunately, he was a proctologist.
Mm.
So that's where my tremors really started, because I was scared of what they're going to do to me. So I had the shoulder surgery. It was painful. It was needless because I didn't hurt my shoulder. It was just my arm was hanging there because of progression of Parkinson's disease. And then when I did get definitive diagnosis, I knew absolutely nothing about the disease, not what it's going to do to me. I had visible examples like Michael J. Fox, Muhammad Ali, and others, that it has something to do with shaking, but really where it comes from, what it does to us, I had no idea. And that's when I started looking for ways to maybe help myself. I was young, I was 47. I was in semi-decent shape, not the shape I'm in right now, because I really had to become like a true athlete when I found out that I have Parkinson's. I was just a ballet master. I could actually gain some weight. What is a ballet master? You walk into a studio full of dancers and you put on a Russian accent. There, you're a ballet master.
Very funny.
Um, and
Right.
say
You have to
say
act,
something.
you need a stick. You have to I you have to hit people with sticks, right?
No, these days you'll probably get sued. And plus, you could do it in Russia. You can't do it here. We live in a civilized society, though a lot of people are running around with guns these days. So that's another story for another meeting.
Yeah.
So I get diagnosed. I try to figure out what to do, because after I was diagnosed, I was told that there are all sorts of wonderful medications, but I really did not want to take them because, medications have side effects, and it just, I didn't know what else to do. So I started jogging a little bit and seeing if that improves something, because you kind of guess what to do. The doctor that I saw, he was a wonderful doctor, I'm sure, but he didn't tell me anything about my diet or what exercises would be better. So I had to kind of figure it out on my own. And to this day, I haven't been diagnosed by a doctor who would ask me what I do. They just keep saying, "Oh, you look great. You look fine. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it." But that's pretty much where it goes. I go to a visit. I touch their nose. I touch my nose. I write a couple of things. I draw a circle, and that pretty much ends the the visit to a regular visit to a doctor. And $600 later, I touch their nose and they touch my nose. For that kind of money, you'd think I should be able to touch anything I want.
Alex.
Yes. Well, doctors are expensive. Um, so over the years, I kind of developed a system of how to anticipate and combat the symptoms when they do appear, when they do occur, and they become a nuisance, like the rigidity, dyskinesia, and tremors, and everything else like that. It's like a menu of symptoms, and everybody gets it slightly differently, because I now work with enough people to see that you don't apply one approach to each person. You have to figure out individually how you can help, and what exercises to do, what to stretch, how to stretch, what to look for, pay attention to diet. And that's how my wife and I came up with the website, pdonthemove.com, where people can go and, at least get an idea of what can be done on a daily basis to help yourself. And
Alex, I want to tell you that the people that I have told about your website, pdonthemove.com, you have fantastic videos, and they're all lengths, They're sitting, standing, lying down. You can choose, and I think it's really. We were going to play a whole bunch at our lobby while people were waiting, but there seems to be a Zoom worldwide problem, so we want to tell people about this. That
I see. I see, Dr. Phil.
your website is inspiring. Okay.
Well, thank you for saying that and giving us an audience to preach what we're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
Uh, it really is that important what we do on a daily basis. It's not one thing; it's many, many different things. But if you do them right, if you pay attention, if you listen to your body, because nothing sings better than your own body. It sings, it talks, it aches, it communicates with us. It's not just the brain that we're trying to cure. We're trying to cure our soul, really. Trying to change our bad habits, develop new habits. It's a work in progress, but if you do it, you will have a good life or a better life with Parkinson's, because it's not a sentence. It's Parkinson's is a challenge. It's not a sentence.
Right. And that's why I think being a dancer gives you a sensitivity of being of what your awareness, and that's what I think you're trying to teach people, to have that awareness for themselves. That you have taken for granted as a dancer, but other people need to learn that. And especially now with Parkinson's, they might not want to, but in order to, this is something that this disease is begging them to do.
Yeah, our options are pills, a cocktail of pills, uh, and with Parkinson's, it's not only the pills that will help your symptoms, but they're also pills to counterbalance your depression, your bowel movement. There's a plethora of things going on with Parkinson's besides Parkinson's. And if you take these cocktails, chances are your body eventually is not going to do too well with that many pills going into your body. So you have to find holistic, athletic ways to counterbalance all that. And there are many things we can do. But again, it takes huge amount of discipline. If you can motivate yourself and change that aspect of your life, just being disciplined, the rewards will be very big. And
How do you get somebody to become motivated?
well, listen, I say very simply that if you hear the diagnosis from your doctor and that doesn't motivate you to go out there and try to find a way to be better, because progression is such a loose term. We don't know how fast, at what rate, what will be affected, when it will be affected. How do you counterbalance it? So you need to become your own best motivator, because not every doctor has the answers for you. And the poor doctors, they would really have to spend hours and months watching you individually to see where to apply the knowledge that exists to help you. So a lot of it has to come from you. You can go to a doctor and say, I've done this, and this really helped me. So you become much more proactive and take control of your lives. And then the doctor can probably prescribe lesser medication, probably try to help you in certain directions you may not have thought of. It's a conversation between your doctor and you, really.
Right, right.
Alex,
Yes.
when you first got the diagnosis, did you jump right into gear, or was there a period of time where you become sort of knocked out by hearing that kind of news? It takes a
Well,
while.
my doctor was on the east side of Manhattan. So I walked through Central Park with this new knowledge that I have Parkinson's. And my thought process was, you know what? Whatever I just found out should stay on the east side. I'm not going to bring it with me to the west side. And I went to Barnes and Noble. We still had bookstores back then. And I went to a section about Parkinson's. I bought Parkinson's for Dummies. I sat down, read about 10 pages of it. It irritated the hell out of me because it just kept saying, no cure, no cure. Literally every page, no cure, no cure. This is not what I wanted to hear. Yes, there at this time there is no cure. But to drive that as a main focus of a book, I thought, no, that cannot be. and I put it down, never looked at it again. And just from that moment on, I just try to figure out a way to stay healthy as possible. Listen, dopamine neurons is just a small part of who we are. There's a whole mechanism of billions of cells and muscles and muscle memory and tissues and ligaments and muscles that's still alive, that's still able to do a lot of good things. So don't focus on just few cells that in your brain decided to malfunction for a while. Use your body to be the instrument that it's supposed to be. It's the guitar that needs tuning, constant tuning, but it's
Alex,
worth it.
oh yeah, I want to make a non-commercial commercial. Um, Not only have you gotten to work on yourself, but you created these beautiful videos, which for the last 2 weeks that I've known about you, I have visited with you in the morning in the comfort of my own apartment, and you've done this free of charge so everyone can access this. Not only do you get me moving, but you get me smiling and you lift my spirits. So I
Well,
just want to say that a word of personal gratitude, a word of encouragement for other people, because for myself, it's hard to do these things alone.
of
I need a
course.
partnership, or I need an appointment with somebody to make sure I show up. So
Right,
the fact
right.
that you're there to
Mm.
guide and do it together is convenient, it's economic, it's wonderful, and so gratitude.
Thank you, thank you. And it's really nice to hear because it's really life is to be shared. So we need to share more than just Parkinson's. We need to share our recipes. We need to share our attitude. We need to share jokes. We need to share new findings, information. That's why I advocate that we cook for life. We cook for ourselves. We cook for others. And because while we're doing all that, it's a conversation that should lift our spirits. Because what else we got?
We got a few questions that came in, and one of them was your experience in recommending short periods of exercise or longer ones, or 10, 15, 20 minutes versus kind of an hour.
Yeah, well, it's the same idea behind if you tell somebody, you should ride a bicycle, they say, what kind? And I always say, the bicycle that you're going to ride. There are many, many models out there, many different varieties, but exercise is something that you should love to do, not something that you have to do. It, it's paramount that we don't go into an exercise routine with the feeling of, oh my God, not again. It should be, I'm going to do it for 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. I'm going to feel great for the rest of the day. That's the point where you're going to love to exercise. And that's the point where you become a different person. It's short exercises. You don't have to run a marathon. It's focused exercises, personalized exercises that that address directly your difficulties. Um, if we're talking about cardiovascular exercises, which are probably the toughest because you're pumping your blood, your lungs are working, and everything else, but they're paramount to good outcomes. We need to work our heart. Um, Intervals, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute intervals where you have high intensity and lower intensity. And it can be anything, jogging, running, biking, anything, really. Um, but
Any thoughts about music and whether that adds anything to the experience?
music is everything when it comes to exercise. That's why sometimes it's better not to go to the gym because they play horrible music sometimes, and you just want to just turn it off already. Some kind of rock band who's having an aneurysm. Um, so music brings us back to the moment when it's good music that you love. It brings us back to the moment where you first heard it. You were a child. You were in school. You were in love. You were breaking up. It brings all these experiences to life. And if it's music that you love to exercise. So
That's very true. One other thing we learned from you that people who are having a hard time sleeping, you recommended that we try exercising later at night. So we did an experiment. listen to you, and a couple of us exercised at 9:30 at night, and everybody who did that had a much better night sleeping. So you want to talk to us about that a little bit?
Well, I'm glad I wasn't a placebo drug. Uh, well, it is just simple. It's very simple. You want to be tired towards the end of the day, not because you spent 8 hours in front of a television watching something, but you've taken time, maybe again 10, 20 minutes, doesn't matter, and you did some vigorous exercising towards the later part of the day. What that does, it just, after a good workout, you get this positive energy, you're fatigued, you've done something, good things, your heart rate slows down, you're breathing better because you exercised, you calm down, you may have a glass of milk or whatever, and just have a restful sleep because you're tired. Uh, Again, tired from exercise is very different than tired from having Parkinson's. You know, that kind of a fatigue is very different. Parkinson's tries to keep us awake. Good exercise puts us to sleep. Simple as that.
Hmm. Um, Phil, do you have any other questions?
Uh, I have a thought or an experience to share because I've played around with a lot of different kinds of exercise. I like variety. I'm not a very disciplined person. Something different speaks to me at each moment. But I have found that if I find music that I enjoy and that has a high level of a beat, a high rhythm and a strong beat, like Irish jig music or Jewish celebration music or all kinds of ethnic things, country music sometimes, Zydeco music, things that I never listened to before, I'm able to actually walk faster and do more and get going and feel more elevated in many ways.
Of course, because it's a rhythm of life. Music is a rhythm of life. It's certainly much better than medications.
That's
So
right.
I'm not suggesting somebody drop their medication. I'm just saying. Uh,
You know, Alex, you said the other day that you felt that diet was 70% of dealing with Parkinson's. Diet, exercise, and motivation. You
yeah.
want to talk about your experience with the diet?
Well, diet is simple. You know, there is a debate going on, and they're trying to, scientists trying to pinpoint why they think that Parkinson's may have originated in our gut. Now, I kind of believe it because there are certain foods that make your symptoms so much worse. Carbohydrates, too much sugar, too much dairy, and on and on and on. And if you listen, you begin to understand that if you eliminate just those few items, you still can eat pretty much what you want. And now these days we have meat substitutes, we have gluten-free this, gluten-free that. But because it works on an individual scale, everybody is different. Uh, you have to manage and pay attention to what you eat all the time because the symptoms will get you immediately if you eat something wrong. And you can't attribute it to Parkinson's. This is your whole body reacting to something that you probably shouldn't eat. Parkinson's just shows you the effects of it more clearly.
Thanks, Alex. You also mentioned something about trying to lower the stress in life. How do you do that?
Well, these days, who knows? Between what goes on in Washington and pandemic and Jesus, I listen to Russian news, American news. Everybody's puzzled. Everybody's blaming everybody for where it came from, where it goes. How do you lower your stress in this environment? Turn off your television. Order your food online so it'll be delivered. Don't go out in public. Um, Go to the beach. There's plenty of space. Do a little jogging, breathing exercises, listening to good music. And one of the better things to do is reunite with an old hobby that you have shelved for years and years and years. You know, if you used to build model airplanes, why not build them again? You want to lubricate your chain on an old bicycle and adjust the handlebars and put some air in the tires, do that. Literally, be more inventive, and your brain loves to reignite with forgotten elements. You know, ignite your brain all over again.
I love that expression. I'm going to remember that and share it with others. Ignite your brain. Find the
Yeah,
places that speak to you, that spark your energy and perk your neurons, and get to work.
exactly. Brain is a lot more, you know, neuroplasticity may sound like a complicated notion, but it really is. I mean, the brain needs to learn. It likes to be challenged. It likes to be tickled. So we just have to tickle it daily, you know?
Since I was blocked out of the Zoom call, I don't know what territory has been covered already. It sounds like you're doing an amazing job. It's a pleasure. So Sue, you're going to have to, if you're there hearing this, you're going to have to guide a little bit.
Okay.
Let me give everybody an update on what's happening. Right now, there still is this Zoom worldwide outage. So the three of us, everybody can see the three of us, but Fega Bristman from the Michael J. Fox Foundation, we cannot hear her or see her. We cannot hear or see Dr. Rizak. So we're just wondering, Alex, if you can do some dance steps from Hello Dolly or something.
Yeah, I'm afraid that Zoom doesn't allow for that. Plus, you know, I'm tethered a little bit.
Right.
What I can suggest is that most people probably took some dance lessons along their wonderful life. You know, those dance lessons are still there. You can still do them. You can still go to your local, well, not these days, but until a few weeks ago, you could take a class and dust off your tap shoes and put on a dance belt. Those are all good things. Nobody said that at this point in time you should stop any of this or not try it again. So, you know, I could certainly show you dance lessons but if you go to our website, there's more lunacy on our website with all sorts of dancing and stretching and lifting. You know, it's all you can eat website. But the main point is that you just have to get yourself out of the house and go and do it, and the rewards will be tremendous.
Anyone who is inspired listening to Alex right now, I can tell you when you go to the website, you're going to find a lot of variety in what he's showing us there. So there are things for those of us who need to be seated in a chair. There are things for those of us who can run around and jump up and down. There are things for balance. So there's a lot of variety. So when I first went there, I kind of saw the first, whatever, one or two things. I didn't realize there was more. A lot of material, a lot to be busy with. So when you jump off this, go to it. And several people have asked on the questions in the chat box, what's the website? It's pdonthemove.com. Did I get that right, Alex?
Yeah, yeah.
pdonthemove.com.
Very simple,
I see
pdonthemove.com.
Fega.
Hey!
Good morning, Fega.
Wow, Faker, we see you. Woohoo!
I'm so glad I made it. Finally.
Good, good. Stick with us. Don't go away, Faker.
I'll
Stay
pause here till you're ready for me.
Fega, I'm sure you were stuck in traffic and that's why we didn't see you. But I'd like to just introduce you because you have a very important contribution to make to the morning and to our locale brunch. I was going to introduce you and say that you were the first course on our 3-course brunch meal. And you are, I got to get your title right. I'm totally off base here.
Director of Advancement, right?
Okay.
Sure. I'm the Associate Director of Advancement
So I
at
think
the
what's
Michael J.
important,
Fox Foundation.
I think what's most important for those of us sitting here today is to realize that you're representing the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which is probably the most aggressive research organization funding efforts to find a real cure, to find better solutions, and it's working very aggressively. And your job's to bring the world together around this and to support it both emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Tremendous work. So we wish you strength and success. And we're hoping you'll give us a little bit of update, kind of where we are at this point and maybe where we're hoping to head.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Thanks so much for that great introduction. And good morning. I hope everyone can see me. I hope everyone can hear me. It's great to be here speaking with you today. As was mentioned, I'm Fega Brisman, and I guess I'll just jump right into it. I thought I'd start our talk today by sort of sharing a peek behind the curtain of how the Fox Foundation is structured before we really got into the research presentation, because I think it's always helpful. So the Michael J. Fox Foundation was founded in 2000 by an actor named Michael J. Fox, and he was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease when he was only 29 years old. So we have a lot invested from like a personal stand on his point. And as you mentioned, we are the largest nonprofit funders of Parkinson's research in the world. We have 15 on-staff PhDs who have like a wide variety of expertise in all of the neurosciences. And what they do is they serve as portfolio managers. We get about 2,000 grant applications for funding from researchers from all over the world. And they're really there to assess the efficacy of the science. And what they'll do is they'll work with some business strategists to make sure that what we fund has sound science, but also is structured in a way that would really make it effective for investment. Because, you know, you can have a researcher with like a really wonderful idea, but if their budget's not in order, or, you know, they don't really have like a good idea of how to execute their idea from a business standpoint, it might not be the most efficient place for us to invest our funding dollars. So we're always looking for trial design and to really identify gaps of where we can accelerate timelines of research. So with that in mind, I just want to like do a general overview. We have 15 PhDs on staff, 2,000 grants are reviewed annually. Additionally, we have no endowment. Sometimes we'll say that we're in business to go out of business because our slogan is here until Parkinson's isn't, which is something we really take seriously. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water. We don't have an endowment. We don't hold on to any of our money because we want to cure Parkinson's disease and we want to shut down. So I'll be out of a job when we cure Parkinson's disease, but it will be worth it. And also, because we don't have an endowment and we have such little overhead as part of our principal, about 88% since inception of every dollar goes directly to researchers. So 88 cents per dollar, a dollar comes in, it's basically used within about 6 months. And also we're milestone driven. So we're not going to give a researcher all of the funding at once. Generally what we do is we'll have them check in quarterly. And you know, if they're meeting their milestones, then we'll give them more money to execute their goals. Now, in terms of some of the questions that I've been getting around the research landscape during this time of COVID-19, a lot of wet labs have had to close. A lot of academic institutions have shut down. So, and just in general, people, you know, aren't feeling as safe going to work. So this has definitely been something that's really affected research and in turn affected us. And we've really tried to be very deliberate and nimble with how we are approaching how we're going to fund right now. So what we've done is we've made an across the board 6-month no cost extension to all of our grantees, because we do understand that while in a perfect world we're milestone driven, this is not, you know, a time when people really have the wherewithal to meet those milestones. So we just want to ensure people that we've already funded, we will be continuing their funding so that they can rely on really being able to pick up where they left off once we are able to really be up and running to the best of our ability. We also are continuing to do grant reviews of information that we will be able to check milestones on. And we are actually continuing to make financial commitments where necessary. So we really want to make sure that even though there's like this break in the world, that science and finding a cure and better symptomatic treatments will not be stopped. You know, this is really just a blip in time, and we're in this for the long haul. So we are continuing to make financial commitments. We also still do our quarterly review meetings, but as you can imagine, all of that has really moved to a virtual format. Um, and also there's a lot that we can do, although, you know, labs have closed. A lot of the research that we do is on using data. So all of our data science projects, things where we have, you know, people complete surveys online, things like that, that I'll be talking about, we can really keep up with the momentum there. So we're just trying to keep things full speed ahead to the best of our abilities during this trying time. And I actually got a couple of questions in advance, and I decided I would sprinkle them throughout this talk today and answer them where I could. And a couple of people asked me about having Parkinson's and whether or not that put you at greater risk of developing COVID-19, or if there was risk of complications. And on the flip side of that, some people asked if maybe taking medications for Parkinson's disease would have some sort of protective measure against coronavirus. So for people who are interested in the connection of COVID-19 and Parkinson's, I would refer them to the Michael J. Fox Foundation website. We have a resource hub there, which is really a trove of information, but I guess I'll give you a couple of spoilers right now. There's no evidence that medications that Parkinson's people take protect them against COVID-19. Parkinson's is neurological, and to the best of researchers' knowledge right now, COVID seems to be respiratory or autoimmune, so really just affecting different symptoms. And also there's no indication that having Parkinson's puts you at a higher risk of developing COVID. The only thing that I might point out is very often Parkinson's coincides with being in an age bracket that is just in the general population, not just people with Parkinson's disease, does put that age bracket at greater risk. So I would definitely be careful if you fall into that age bracket in general, but not really specifically associated with Parkinson's disease. And I'll also mention, I've been speaking to so many community members, and they've been telling me that just the uncertainty in the world has brought some stress and anxiety into their lives. And we do know that stress and anxiety are two things that really exacerbate Parkinson's symptoms. I know that some people feel like they can't move around or exercise as much as they used to, and that could have a negative effect. So there are a lot of ancillary things that might affect your Parkinson's disease, but the actual COVID, it seems to be that your risk would be akin to anybody else within the population. So I wanted to move on from talking about that to talking about the Michael J. Fox Foundation and our research priorities. Generally, what we'll do is we'll split our research priorities into 3 different categories, and those are improved symptomatic treatments. The second research priority is development of a treatment that will slow, stop, or reverse the progression of Parkinson's disease. And our third priority is, am I speaking too fast? Okay. And our third priority is addressing field-wide challenges that would impact the scientific landscape and our ability to make progress. So I mentioned the first priority, which is symptomatic management. And we've seen a lot of momentum in that field for better treatments of symptoms of Parkinson's disease. In fact, at our count, in the last 6 years, there have been 14 new Parkinson's therapies that have been approved and counting. Most recently, we saw this momentum continuing with the FDA approval of a new Parkinson's medication called Ongentys. Some of you may have heard of Ongentys. It's for off times, and what it is it's a COMT inhibitor.
Vega, could you spell that?
Sure. It's ONGENTYS. That's like the brand name. Some people might also know it as Opicapone, which is OPICAPONE.
I wasn't testing you. I just thought that some of us might want to follow up by looking that up.
No problem. Oh, and that's like a good point. If anybody has questions, sometimes I know when I get excited, I speak really quickly. You can follow up with me. You can just email me at fbrisman@michaeljfox.org. Sometimes I'm trying to get everything out so quickly. So feel free to follow up with me personally or ask one of the organizers for my contact information. And
Thanks.
also feel free to stop me at any time, Phil.
Thanks, Vega.
Sure. So Ongentys, what it does is it prevents levodopa from breaking down as quickly, so more of it gets into the brain and turns into dopamine. Essentially, what most people with Parkinson's take in terms of medication is a levodopa carbidopa. And we know that the chemistry of that is pretty much perfect. It's the gold standard for treatment of Parkinson's disease, but we're always working on ways to get the medication to have this like low and slow flow throughout the day. So it lessens off periods and, you won't feel that halting or freezing that's associated with off. And a couple of people also asked me about Ongentys. This is something that was just approved. So if you're interested in it, I would go to your doctor. If off is something that affects you, you're actually in luck because there's been quite a lot of movement in that field. You may have heard of.
Vega,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Go
would
ahead.
you just define the term off? Because
Yeah,
it's become
sure.
a common term, but not everybody's familiar with it.
Oh, no problem. So off is when I was talking about like that low and slow type of treatment that we're looking for with medication. Sometimes what happens when people are digesting their medication, they'll have times where they'll get a little bit more medication, and then there's off happens when you have like a dip in the valley and you're not getting as much medication into your brain, which would function as dopamine. So something like Ongentys, what that would do is you would take it as a pill with your medication and it would have your medication work better for you. So, some people take time release and that sort of off period, would be mitigated. So off is that sort of dip time where not enough medication is getting to where it needs to get for you to feel your best. And oftentimes what people who experience what I've been calling this off period, they'll have a kind of freezing where they find that they need a prompt to really be able to get up and moving again. It manifests in a few different ways.
Vega?
Yeah, go
First
ahead.
of all, Alex, were you raising your hand to say something?
No, just
Okay.
a scratch.
Okay.
Enjoy the scratch.
Okay.
Vega, I'm digesting this. This is new information for me.
Oh, great.
And it's important information for all of us. So I wanted to check something out with you. Is it a sense that this new medication would be in addition to the levodopa carbidopa and might therefore reduce the quantity one needs per day in order to manage their symptoms?
Yeah, so I have to tell you, I'm not a doctor. Basically, what my job is to take the science and really like disseminate it to people. So I can't really speak to whether or not it would affect a dosage. That's really a doctor conversation. But what I can do is say that, yeah, the first part of your question is yes, you would take it as a pill, small molecule type of thing. You would take it as a pill along with your regular schedule of medication, and it would actually enhance the way the medication works. So very often what's happening with your medication is you're taking it as a pill. So it has to go down through your digestive tract. Maybe it's interacting with other foods, maybe it's not. Then it has to flow back up, cross your blood-brain barrier, find, the right part of your brain to really give you that burst of dopamine. So when I was talking about the chemistry being right, we know the chemistry is right for replacing dopamine in your brain, but we're always looking for the best possible way to get the medication to where it needs to be in the quickest possible time. So this would be something that would really enhance the effectiveness of the medication that you're already taking. And there are a couple of other treatments for this off period. Last year,
just one more jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is now FDA approved?
Yes, this just got FDA approval.
Meaning like within the recent months?
Yeah, it just happened a couple of weeks ago.
So for some people, it might be worth asking this conversation with their physicians.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have, for people that this might affect, I have a couple of other suggestions for them. Last year, there was another, what we call rescue therapy, which is something you can keep in your pocket if you find that off is something that's really affecting your life. It's an inhaled form of levodopa carbidopa, sort of like an asthma inhaler. So if off is something that affects you, but you don't want to add another pill to your regimen, this might be something to ask your doctor about. And that was, it was approved late 2019 or late 2018 and came to market early 2019. And I'm kind of excited. We're on the lookout. There's another treatment for off that's currently with the FDA for approval. So it has not been approved yet, but we're hoping to hear about it by the end of the month. And this, yeah, I'm sorry, Phil, did you have something you wanted to ask? Oh, sorry. You're muted, so I can't really hear you.
I'm sorry. I'd like you to finish your thought, and then there's some
Okay.
questions coming in I'd like to share with you. So I'll wait till you're done.
Sure. Okay. So, and that treatment, it's what we call an apomorphine strip. And it's basically like a thin film that you would put into your mouth under your tongue. It would dissolve and you would get a burst of the medication within minutes. And that would really prompt you out of this kind of like low slump in your medication sort of working effectively, and it would get you over that kind of like low valley till your next dosage of medication. That, as I said, it's by a company called Synovian, and it's currently with the FDA for approval. So we'll probably hear by the end of the month whether or not it's been approved by the FDA, but something to look out for. Okay. Did you have something you wanted me to add, Phil? Again, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, things
Okay.
were a little fluky here. I couldn't unmute.
Okay.
A question came in about cannabis and if there's any research going on with that.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of
And they also are asking where they can get good quality at a good price.
Yeah, so that is all information. I wish I had like all the time in the world because there's so much to say and so little time. But the Michael J. Fox Foundation website is a really great place to answer all of these questions. We actually, just a couple months ago, had a wonderful webinar on cannabis and marijuana use. And I think that would be, for people who are interested, like a real trove of information, and they can access that right on the website. In terms of the best places to get your medications, that's something that the Michael J. Fox Foundation has a policy department that can really work with people. So that would be more of a personal discussion. I don't have any like broader recommendations right now without knowing somebody's.
Is there any sense of a trend if research is going in a different way than it might have 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and where we might be headed, that sense of movement in science?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question also. I will say I do think that there are some trends in research. Right now, I've just been talking about symptom management, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the trends in research when I transition to our next research priority, which is what I like to call like the cure portfolio, something that will modify the face of the disease. So I'll touch on some of those then. But in terms of symptom management, I will just say, most recently, I've been seeing promise in the fact that people are opening up to the fact that Parkinson's is not just something that has motor symptoms. There's really been a lot of traction with dealing with non-motor symptoms as well. So you'll probably see some of that reflected. And a couple of other questions came in when we talk about
What would be an
trends.
example of non-motor symptoms?
Perfect. Yeah, so a couple of people sent in some questions before, and one of the examples actually falls really beautifully with some of the questions that they asked. I got a number of questions about sleep. That's an example of a non-motor symptom. Some people with Parkinson's have digestive issues. That's another example of a non-motor symptom: stress, anxiety. So there are so many things that people with Parkinson's deal with that are non-motor, and Parkinson's has really traditionally been associated with having a tremor, and we all know that it's so much more than that. So I did want to quickly address some of the questions that I got about sleep now that we're talking about symptoms, if that's okay. And somebody
Sleep was
just,
going to be our third course this morning. So
okay,
since
yeah,
I cannot see Dr. Michael Rizak and Dr. Jennifer Pallone, who were going to help us with that conversation. So thank you for bringing that up.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know what? Let me just interject here for 1 minute before we go to the sleep subject. Can you just take 2 steps back and tell us what you said about COVID again, COVID-19?
Yeah, sure. So in a nutshell, COVID-19 it does not seem that having Parkinson's disease would put you at higher risk of COVID-19 or of having complications with COVID-19 unless you had another risk factor. And I did just want to point out that another risk factor might be falling within a certain age bracket, and very often people with Parkinson's disease will fall into that age bracket. So something to be aware of. I also pointed people to the
So it's better to stay younger.
I don't know. I'm really enjoying the company of everybody that I keep these days, regardless of age. So I think it's best to have a good attitude. Um, I also wanted to point people who have questions about COVID-19 and Parkinson's disease to the Michael J. Fox Foundation website, where we have a resource hub that's dedicated solely to that topic with really a trove of information. Okay. Do you think we're ready for sleep now to talk a little bit about some of the questions that I got?
Yes, for sure. Go ahead.
All right, wonderful. So somebody just basically asked if we've done any research on sleep, and the answer is yes. We have done quite a bit of research on sleep, and we know that generally whatever people do, whatever people even without Parkinson's can do to keep themselves healthy and their bodies working optimally, that goes double for people with Parkinson's disease. So a good night's sleep is really imperative to everybody's health. But for people with Parkinson's disease, we have found that there's definitely a connection to impaired sleep and Parkinson's disease. So
They've been able to factor out age from and separate out that.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting that you bring up age, because what we found is that sleep disturbances and also a sleep disorder called REM, sleep behavior disorder, actually seem to manifest themselves years before a diagnosis. So when people seem to have sleep disturbances years before they're diagnosed, that's kind of like a key. And I will just say, people with sleep disturbances don't all move on to get Parkinson's disease, but we have found that people with Parkinson's disease do seem to have this common factor that manifested itself many years before the onset of their other symptoms. So we've decided that that is like a really great place for study in terms of maybe like an early indicator in terms of, connecting disturbed sleep to issues with Parkinson's disease. Perhaps there's some sort of correlation there. So this has been a great source of study for us in terms of being able to maybe diagnose earlier, which would lead to better treatments, or create some sort of cause and effect in that way. I did want to mention, for those who are interested in what's going on with sleep within the scientific landscape, it's quite broad, but there actually is a company called Biogen that recently bought a drug that they're hoping to test for sleep with Parkinson's issues. Now, I do just want to say this is with the caveat that they actually haven't even started phase 1 testing of this medication. So there is a long way off, but it's an indicator that this is a large area of study, and it's possible that there will be a drug in development coming out of it. Phase 1 is scheduled actually for later this year. So we'll definitely keep our eyes and ears open for an update on that as well.
I'm glad you're sharing these things, because I'm struck by the wide range of areas that the foundation is looking at and funding. It's quite impressive.
I'm glad that you bring that up. It's not only is it a good segue into what I wanted to talk about next, but it also shows that one of the priorities for our foundation is diversity. You know, we have the ability to invest in things that, you know, a larger pharmaceutical company or a biotech or bottom line people, they might not want to invest in. And what we'll do is we'll come in with, you know, smaller amounts of money, but for a wider array of ideas. So we can really diversify the kinds of research that are going on in the field and take multiple different approaches to the same problem and, you know, really see which one sticks. And I think that that's really ideal. And in turn, what it also does is it helps us create more interest by de-risking an idea, by pushing results in a certain direction. It creates greater interest from those pharmaceutical companies that have deeper pockets and, you know, can really invest. As an example, getting one drug onto your medicine cabinet shelves, it takes probably at least 10 years and about $1 billion for one drug. Now, the foundation, which is the largest nonprofit funder of Parkinson's research, last year we were thrilled to have fundraised $100 million and be able to utilize that towards research. So, you know, even though that's quite a lot of money when it comes to drug development, like what we're doing, it's really only a drop in a bucket. So the best thing that we can do is really try and create a market that's appetizing for these larger pharmaceutical companies to invest in.
Are there any, I think, other areas, you mentioned the sleep one, that we wouldn't expect the foundation to be involved in, that might be leading to understanding more insight into various challenges?
Yeah, I'll just, off the top of my head, I'll tell you one that I find really intriguing, and mostly because it's never been done before, and that's an area that we call gait imbalance. We found, we have a very large scale clinical trial, which I'll talk about later, but we found that over 65% of Parkinson's patients were self-reporting that they had issues with gait imbalance. And that's not something that we were hearing from doctors. Often because, you know, sometimes when you go to the doctor, not everything comes out. But what we decided to do is, you know, gait imbalance isn't something you can take a pill for, and it's an immediate risk. So we've been utilizing technology and really trying to use technology and wearable devices to fix this problem of gait imbalance, or at least make people feel safer when they're walking or when they have this issue of shuffling of gait or whatever it might be. We know exercise, of course, Alice can speak to that, is really helpful, but we're trying to see what other kinds of things we can do as well to address that issue. Sorry, I just needed to clear my throat there for a second. Okay, so that is, I think, a very nice overview of our symptomatic portfolio. And moving on, I wanted to discuss the next research priority of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And that, as I mentioned, is where we really look at research that can slow, stop, or prevent disease progression, perhaps even reverse disease progression. And that's what I call the cure portfolio, something that will really modify the face of the disease as we know it. So currently there are an astounding 20 new drugs that we are testing that would have the potential to slow or stop disease progression. And we have like a variety of pathways and different mechanisms that we've been looking at where we think we can find the possibility of a cure. But there's one that I wanted to highlight today, kind of because I think it's a term that a lot of people have heard. It's sort of a hot button. And I wanted to describe it and maybe give a little like field update of where we are. And it's something that we've really identified as having a lot of promise. So that is something called alpha-synuclein. Now, historically, Parkinson's disease has been associated with a depletion of dopamine, and we know that's what's happening. You know, your dopamine has been compromised, and that's what's leading to these movement issues. But why has this dopamine been compromised? So when I was talking to Susan about this, I actually used an analogy that I feel like she likes, so I'm just going to share it with everybody now. Say you have a fishbowl, you have some goldfish and they're your pet, and you wake up in the morning and you notice that a couple of them are floating at the top. So you scoop them out and you run to the pet store before your kids wake up and you replace them. And the next morning you wake up and some of the new ones are floating to the top too. So you can keep scooping out these goldfish and you can be like, well, there's something wrong with the goldfish. But maybe you have to step back for a second and think, maybe it's not the goldfish. Maybe there's something wrong with my water. Maybe there's something wrong with the little pebbles, at the bottom of my bowl. Perhaps it's the environment that the fish are living in that's the problem, not the fish themselves. And that's sort of what we're doing when we look at the brain. The dopamine are like the goldfish. Maybe there's a problem with the dopamine, but perhaps there's something wrong with the environment around the dopamine. And we have identified the culprit as what's causing the toxic environment for dopamine as a misfolding protein. And what it does is, everybody has this protein. It's called alpha-synuclein. But in people with Parkinson's disease, it seems like this protein is starting to clump up. And when it clumps, it creates a toxic environment, which is really detrimental to dopamine. So it's really this snowball effect. So instead of dealing directly with the dopamine, we decided to take a step back. Perhaps we can clean up the environment around the dopamine by solving the problem of alpha-synuclein. And if the environment around the dopamine is clear, the dopamine will be able to thrive. So this has really been like a big source of concentration for us in research. And we have, I believe it's 12 clinical trials right now on alpha-synuclein, and they're not all doing the same thing. Each one has an approach that's a little bit different. And I find that really heartening, because that means that there are 12 different ways that we're really exploring in depth of how to deal with the issue of alpha-synuclein. I wanted to highlight one today because we had a recent positive result on it, but also it's an immunotherapy approach. And I know immunotherapy has kind of been in the news a lot because of COVID-19. And people are talking about antibodies. So I thought it might be like a great example to show one of the ways that we think, we might be able to cure Parkinson's disease with this approach as well. So there's a company called Epheris. It's an Austrian biotech company, and it actually was the sponsor of the first alpha-synuclein therapy that ever moved into clinical trials. And when I talk about clinical trials, I mean into human testing, so beyond a lab, beyond animals, really like the last forte that you need before FDA approval. So it's gotten quite far. And that first alpha-synuclein therapy was actually enabled by Michael J. Fox Foundation funding. And it recently started this immunotherapy approach, and it passed phase 1. So it's now moving into phase 2 of trials. And that means that this treatment was found to be safe and tolerable. And it also seemed to indicate that it did indeed incite production of antibodies in the system. So what that means is that the treatment is trying to trigger your body to produce alpha-synuclein antibodies, which would lower the protein level, meaning like those clumps, it wouldn't clump up as much, and that would protect your cells. So phase 2 is scheduled to start later this year in the USA and Europe. And as I said, that's just one example. So a lot of excitement in that field.
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk just for a moment about the word cure. And I have, the way my screen is, I have my face in the center little box. I have Alex's smile to my left and your smile to my right. Okay. And my own take as someone who is dealing with Parkinson's challenge in my life is that the thing that I never imagined, I never fantasized or thought, was that one could improve their health in the presence of whatever the biochemistry is of this Parkinson's challenge phenomena, biomedical circumstance. And so I have a feeling that we need to kind of be aware and see the best in each avenue. That it's amazing to hear that the directions are expanding to deeper and deeper roots. And that was a beautiful point, that we're looking more to the environment, we're moving back from the fish itself to the water and the air pump and all of that. I love that, and I appreciate hearing that. And at the same time, for those of us who are listening, who might feel like, okay, so what am I going to do? Sit around for 20 years in hopes that this will eventually become an FD? At the same time that you're exploring these things and discussing them with your physicians, who need to be experts, who are up to date, we need to, at the same time, not be curing ourselves, but improving the quality of our lives in every possible way. So if you could improve your diet and improve your exercise, so my tremor goes up, what you're calling off time, rather than seeing that as a drug problem, I see that as a call to either take a nap or exercise or eat. And then often the tremor goes down. So I'm trying to minimize, I do use the levodopa, carbidopa, but I don't see that as my main go-to. I see that as something to use to supplement trying to improve my life, including the stress issues. Normal life is stressful. In any case, I just want to make sure for those of us listening that we don't go like, okay, we've got to sit and wait for this. There are things we can do that Alex is doing for himself and sharing with all of us. And he's not the only one who is inspiring us to look at those things, in combination with listening to what your foundation is doing and seeing what we can learn from that can be helpful to us in the present. So thank you. I just wanted to make that little commercial connection.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you brought that up. You know, sometimes you kind of have to see the forest for the trees. So I really appreciate you sort of like directing me back. And that is why, you know, we do have these 3 research priorities. You know, there are a number of people who really want to see a cure. You know, I mentioned our founder, Michael J. Fox. He was diagnosed at 29. He's now 58. So he's been waiting for this for a while. But I also kind of like wanted to put this into perspective.
He hasn't been waiting. He's been acting.
That's true.
Fighting.
That's true. He's not just waiting.
That's why he is full of life.
You are
He's
100%.
devoted himself to doing something, not just for himself, but for the world. And I guess when we talk about cure, really, we're hoping that down the road, fewer people will be challenged in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely for the future. But I have to say, when I look at these timelines, you know, for a lot of people, this might sound like a very long period of time, but I think for a lot of people, you know, it's within reach. It's not 20 years. For the trials that I'm talking about, we're going to hear results within 4, 5, 6 years. And I know that sounds like a long time, especially when you're struggling with something, but this isn't just for future generations. For many of you, these are real changes that could happen within this generation. And I know people, you know, we've been around for 20 years and we definitely thought we would close our doors much earlier. So people have probably like heard this before, but I choose to remain hopeful. But with that,
I think that optimism is the key to life. All of us would be cooked if it weren't.
Yeah.
But I think that the point that's important for those of us who are sitting in on this meeting this morning is to realize your life shouldn't be about sitting and waiting.
Yeah.
Because Parkinson's wants to get you to move less, do less, be less. And what you have to do is live big. You have to do more. And the more you do, the healthier and happier you are, while at the same time being open to what can be done from the world of serious research and medicine.
Yeah. And so with that, I'll move into our 3rd research priority and the final one that I'm going to be talking about today. And that is what we kind of call field-wide challenges. And sometimes the way that I'll look at this research priority is, you know, what's keeping us from solving the first 2 research priorities. So what's keeping us from treating a specific symptom? What are some of the roadblocks there? You know, why haven't we found a cure? You know, what have been some of the things that have really stopped us in that way? And as I answered this, as I thought about this and presenting it, I actually got a question from someone in advance, and I'm actually going to answer it in this research priority. And that person wrote that they're very active in their Parkinson's community, and they would like to advocate with the Fox Foundation. However, they're not in a financial position to become a giver. So what are the other ways that they can help? And I think that this is a really important question, and it's one that I have found a lot. And I think it can be answered by helping with some of our field-wide challenges. And I would say one of the largest field-wide challenges that we face is clinical trial recruitment. Now, I know that this is really fraught and everybody should do what is right for them, but you can have there could be somebody who has solved, the problem, has found a cure for Parkinson's disease. But if we don't have enough people who are willing to participate in clinical trials, there's just no way that it's ever going to get to market. So one thing that we will help people with very often is clinical trial recruitment. And I just want to leave with like 2 suggestions as we were talking about like action items and not sitting around and what you can do today. Here are some like very practical examples of things that you could leave with today, including addressing this field-wide challenge. The first one, I actually see somebody linked it. It's called Fox Insight. And Fox Insight is an online clinical trial run by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And you just sign up. It is the largest clinical trial of Parkinson's today. Over 45,000 people participate in Fox Insight. So it's for people with Parkinson's disease and controls. And all it is quarterly surveys that you get prompted to your inbox, take about 45 minutes every 3 months to answer some questions. And this goes into a huge trove of patient-driven data where we can really drive research forward, like the gait imbalance research that I told you about. We were clued into how big of an issue gait imbalance was in the lives of people with Parkinson's disease through the information we got through Fox Insight. We've also deployed a survey on COVID-19 and how that's affecting the Parkinson's population. So we use it for a lot of real-time scenarios. We were able to put together an economic burden report to present to the government to advocate for more funding for Parkinson's research through Fox Insight. So this is something everybody can do, and it's just so incredibly helpful to the Parkinson's research community. All Fox Insight data is freely searchable to any researchers who want it. So the data might even be utilized in ways that we don't even know about. And that's kind of a light lift. It's remote. If you happen to be watching this presentation on a computer or a device, you can use the very device you're using now to participate in Fox Insight as well.
And I assume that the data are anonymous.
Yes, everything is de-identified. It's all anonymous.
Sounds like a wonderful way to feel good about your challenge, because you can use your story to help others and to move what you hope will be a better future.
That was
awesome.
terrific, Vega. Also, that was really a wonderful talk from you, and we appreciate so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure. And we will, I'm sure everybody got a lot of information. We got a lot of questions, and we will have this video on our website soon. Dr. Phil, I think you have a commercial break right now.
Okay, we have 3 commercials. First of all, Vega, that was awesome. And wow. And we will need you back because you have so much to share and you share it so beautifully.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to end with a quote from the founder of our foundation, Michael J. Fox. He says that it's not our challenges that define us, our actions do. And Phil, I think you really echoed that today. So I just wanted to say everybody who has participated today has made a positive action by coming here for yourselves, for your community. So thank you so much for having me. And feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Rizak, are you there? Dr. Rizak, because Dr. Phil is going to just give us a little commercial break here to tell you about our sponsors. And then we'd like to have Dr. Rizak speak about all these questions that people have written in about sleep.
Okay, so first of all, we actually have this whole gathering that has just occurred and that there will be more of is the dream and vision of really one person, the founder and director of Parkinson's Wellness Project, the very same Susan Lust. So every one of us, the participants in this and those who are not on screen, we have a huge thank you. I'm sending you a hug that you should feel fulfilled for helping move all of us in good directions in our lives and bringing us together to help each other. So
Phil,
having,
I would just like to say that everybody has to give us a second chance, because it just so happens that the president of Zoom sent around information saying there is a worldwide Zoom outage, especially in the US. So it's amazing that we've gotten this far today with these big problems. So moving along, technology is tough, but thank God we have it.
yeah, so I'm going to just continue with the commercial break and make a comment about Parkinson's Wellness Project. And kind of a thematic statement is that loneliness is often a predictor of Parkinson's progression. And the opposite side of the coin is social interaction frees up our neurons, fires them up, and gets our brain going. And that's what Parkinson's Wellness Project is capitalizing on. The project, the PWP, is a not-for-profit that promotes awareness, education, and social interaction for people with Parkinson's disease. We provide educational events, promote strategies to help people with their physical, emotional, and mental challenges that come with Parkinson's. And we want to be clear in it to make sure that you know that we have a website so you can stay in touch with us and be informed about future events. And it is parkinsonswellnessproject.org, parkinsonswellnessproject.org. And I think that now I want to mention the other thing about having seminars like this. We need financial support. And we are extremely grateful to two organizations who have provided the funding for this event and really supported us. And that is Medtronics and Adamas. And they each sent us a statement that I'm going to share. Medtronic salutes all of the valued healthcare partners who are the courageous heroes during this pandemic. They, in fact, are putting their lives on the line to save other people's lives. Medtronic is reaching out to say thank you and to emphasize that Medtronic DBS is here to support you during these challenging times, and that the DBS field representatives are customizing their support for patients by using remote monitoring solutions so that there's limited exposure to patients and healthcare professionals and Medtronic employees. Amazing. We want to be clear and make the world know that the DBS business, with nearly 650 employees, will continue to support existing products that are out there and continue to drive new technology. And we look forward in particular to improved, bright future for DBS patients, people with Parkinson's who undergo DBS. We're ramping up our ventilator manufacturing, doubling our production. We're sharing our own specifications and design characteristics with other companies to help accelerate production of these life-saving devices on a worldwide basis. We've created this remote monitoring solutions, which help lessen the risk to healthcare professionals. And Medtronic Foundation has donated more than $11 million to support immediate response efforts to the pandemic. Our employees have also donated their own matching funds to the Medtronic Foundation, and those funds are used for non-for-profit organizations that are responding to the pandemic. Amazing. The Medtronic DBS family has a deeply rooted, long history of supporting and collaborating healthcare professionals, and it is our expressed desire at Medtronic to be the best partner we can during these challenging times. From Medtronic team, we say thank you to all the healthcare professionals. And from us at PWP, we say thank you to Medtronic. And Jenna, Allie, I don't know if you're out there, but I know you made an effort to be there with us representing Medtronic, so thanks for joining the brunch. Adamas. The purpose and vision of Adamas is to deliver innovative medicines and to make a difference for patients, caregivers, and society. Adamas is focused on growing an entire portfolio of therapies for a range of neurologic diseases. In 2018, Adamas successfully launched Gocovri, that's amantadine, extended release capsules, the first and only FDA-approved medicine for the treatment of dyskinesia in patients with Parkinson's disease who are receiving levodopa therapy. Gocovri is also the only medicine proven to reduce both dyskinesia and off-time symptoms. During Parkinson's Awareness Month, Adamas conducted the Adamas on the Move Challenge, and its employees raised over $15,000 donated to the Parkinson's Foundation. And from Adamas, we were joined by Mary Ann Gromish and Joe Snyder. I hope you were able to be part of this. Thank you for your support, and thank you to Adamas and for being there, supporting us. Those are our commercial thank yous, and of course to our presenters, Fega, Alex, and Dr. Michael Rizak and Dr. Jennifer Pallone, thank you, and certainly to Sue again, thank you, thank you.
So now we are going to hear from Dr. Rizak. So Dr. Schneider, can you hear me? So I'm
back.
Okay, can everybody hear Dr. Rizak, because I'm having problems hearing him or seeing him. So Dr. Rizak, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just let me know. Can everybody see Dr. Rizak?
I can hear him.
You can hear.
I hear the voice.
Okay. So I think there are people that see you, Dr. Rizak, but a few of us here don't. So
I do not see you.
Dr. Phil and Dr. Rizak, you take it away with the questions on sleep. And
Dr. Pallone is not with us?
No, Dr. Pallone. Dr. Rizak, tell us about Dr. Pallone.
Dr. Pallone unfortunately got roped into covering the hospital today. And there's been a shortage of physicians. And so she is doing emergency consults within Vassar Hospital. So she apologizes, but I will steal her material without any remorse.
It testifies to the devotion that you and Dr. Pallone are out there helping people, and that comes first, and being able to share information and talk about things, that's nice in the cracks, but service and helping save lives is number one.
Dr. Rizak, I just want to say something to everybody about Dr. Rizak, is that Jenna Ali introduced us to Dr. Rizak, Rabbi Moshe Gruskin, and myself. It's almost, I think it'll be 2 years in August, and I think we haven't stopped thanking him for all the amazing work that he is doing with our community, and we are so grateful for his brilliant help with our community, and his kindness and his caring. So I will.
That's an amazing combination of qualities. So I'm going to introduce this topic and introduce you, Dr. Michael Rizak. I can't see you, but I know you're out there. This is the third course of our brunch. And it is a topic that's very important to many of us, maybe most of us. And it's a topic that's often not discussed, and that's the issue of sleep. And how do we understand the challenges and the changes in our sleep patterns? And how do we are there things that we can do non-medicinally and or medicinally that could be helpful to us? So I'd like to give a little of credit to Dr. Rizak, who is tell us a little about his work. He's at Nuvance Health System in New York and Connecticut, director of the Movement Disorders Center and co-director of the Movement Disorders Neurosurgical Program at Vassar Brothers Medical Center and Hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I found this very interesting and powerful, that you have degrees in psychology, neuroanatomy, bioethics, along with your medical expertise and extensive experience with DBS and supporting people with Parkinson's disease. So there are lots of questions. I don't know if you want to just jump in, or do you want me to lead off with a question?
Well, can I make a statement first?
Please, that would be great.
All right, a couple of things. One is I just wanted to, hopefully everyone can hear me, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here. This community is amazing, and I feel very much a part of it, and I want to do everything I can to help our patients. So does Dr. Pallone. Unfortunately, she's not here. But one thing to say about COVID-19 with our Parkinson's patients, and it is true that having Parkinson's does not put you necessarily at a higher risk for getting it, but I would say that it might make it harder to recover should you contract COVID-19. Of course, our age is a risk factor, but Parkinson's is not. But once you contract it, because of the exacerbation of symptoms, respiratory issues, it may make it much harder to recover. And so I think the best advice is keep your distance, cover your face, do all the right things, and we'll get through this, and I think we'll have minimal issues. But it isn't, it isn't as simple as not having a greater risk. It is an issue of not contracting it because it may be harder to recover from it.
I appreciate that. I think it's very important that you said that. So we should be as careful as we can.
Yes, and the other, because I'm going to be talking about sleep, I think, and I'm not as well read as Phil is, but I think the quote from Macbeth really sums up sleep and its purpose. Shakespeare said in that book, innocent sleep, sleep that soothes away all our worries, sleep that puts each day to rest, sleep that relieves the weary laborer and heals hurt minds. Sleep, the main course in life's feast and the most nourishing. And I think that's really what sleep is all about. It's restorative. It gives us energy for the next day. And it also, there's data that says it consolidates our memories. It helps us learn better. And if we go back to Freud, Freud said sleep and dreaming or wish fulfillment and problem solving. And I think sleep really is critical to our well-being for the next day and for every day. And we know when we don't, even if you don't have Parkinson's and you don't get enough sleep because of worries or some other issues, the next day and our functioning is not optimal, and our thinking, all of those sharpness and those things are not quite as good. So I'm gonna, after those statements, I think I'll let, if there are specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So first of all, I think that was a wonderful intro. And I just add one thing that was striking me as I was listening to you, which is I think in our culture and maybe in a lot of cultures, but not all, we underrate the value of sleep. So I know I felt like a hero when I could go with fewer and fewer hours of sleep until I finally got really sick. But sleep is a really good meal, and we need to make sure we allow ourselves to do whatever we need to do to put that on our priority list.
Yes.
So the first question you already kind of answered, which is why sleep, and you answered it in a very holistic way. A question that came up a few times is that sleep patterns in general tend to change as we grow from one decade to the next. We could call it aging, or we could call it growing. And how do we separate out issues about changes in our sleep that may be related to Parkinson's as a pathologic process, or the medications that we take to deal with our Parkinson's, versus simply the issue of aging from decade to decade?
Yeah, I think the thing to know is that about 80% of patients with Parkinson's will have some sort of sleep difficulties. And there are some very specific sleep difficulties that are more common in Parkinson's. With age, the sleep cycles, which are about 90 minutes long, you get less of them. We need about five to six sleep cycles through most ages, but as we get older, we may end up getting 4 to 5 sleep cycles, and the sleep cycles usually end with REM sleep, the rapid eye movement sleep, where we are dreaming. And then we go through these cycles repeatedly, and that causes us to be refreshed and energized for our next day. But if we start experiencing sleep disturbances such as frequent awakenings, movements in sleep, something called periodic limb movements in sleep, of course, REM sleep behavior disorder, which is very common in Parkinson's and can predate the onset of the motor symptoms, those are issues that are more targeted, related to the Parkinson's disease process. And we also know that based on pathological studies, that some of the sleep center areas in the brain are affected with the Parkinson's abnormal protein. Can be years or a decade before the onset of the motor symptoms in some patients. So there's a lot of these things need to be sorted out in the office, get detailed histories. When did it start? What are the exact problems that we're having? Sometimes we need a bed partner to be able to tell us what is actually going on at night, because the patient is sleeping and may not even realize that. they're behaving in certain ways, like REM sleep behavior disorder. The other thing to consider are normal things that happen to other people who don't have Parkinson's, like sleep apnea. Those are issues that can occur. The other issue is good sleep hygiene. Are patients actually going to sleep at a specific time? Are they not turning on television or looking at their bills before they go to sleep, which would really disturb sleep in anybody? So, I mean, a detailed history is very, very important.
I want to chime in on the last thing you said about a detailed history, that you're sitting here in a generic conversation with questions and answers. But one of the things I learned from you, and I learned from my own life experience, is that the conversation between the individual with the problem and the physician is a very personal thing. And the more information you can share back and forth and the more detail you can provide, the more that the person with the challenge can get out of the relationship with the physician. And so that it was very clear in your other presentations that you try very hard to make sure people communicate, get as much detail as they can, and that allows you to participate with them in exploring ways to make things better. So it's very personal. Another question is whether there are specific medications that people are using for their Parkinson's that could be causing some of the sleep problems, and whether changing around or altering their schedule of medications may have any impact.
Yeah, there are some medications. Amantadine is one of them, even though I have GoCovery, which we actually take at bedtime. But the standard amantadine, even I think GoCovery in that long-acting amantadine formulation can, in some patients, cause some sleep disturbance. Anticholinergic medicines like Artane or Cogentin, and other medications like even the tricyclic antidepressant medicines can cause sleep disturbance, but not in everybody. So again, if I'm interviewing somebody and I hear these drugs are on board, I think, and the sleep problems fit the profile, I may try to remove those medicines or reduce them, or try to take them earlier, not right before bedtime, to help enhance sleep. So there are certainly medications that that we use for Parkinson's that can disturb sleep. The other problem to think about is, are we taking medicines during the day that are making us sleepy, and we're taking long naps, which we really don't think is a good idea. So 20-minute naps a couple of times a day, I think are okay. But if we're taking an hour, 2-hour naps during the day, it's going to definitely disturb our sleep. And some of those naps can be precipitated, or the tiredness, from the medications that we're taking. Most notoriously are the dopamine receptor agonists, like Mirapex, Requip, and Nupro. Those are well known to cause daytime sleepiness and also even sleep attacks sometimes.
Mm. Another question deals with vivid dreams that get acted out with yelling sometimes, and sometimes actually with physical aggressive movements. I've experienced those myself. They're upsetting, sometimes dangerous. I've launched out of my bed twice in sleep and actually hit my soulmate a few times. That has calmed down. But anything that we know about why those things often occur and what to do to, of course, reduce the incidence?
Well, that is termed REM sleep behavior disorder, REM, rapid eye movement sleep. That's when we're actually supposed to be dreaming, and we are supposed to essentially be paralyzed. We're not supposed to be moving during those periods. We have inhibitory brain mechanisms that are acting to help prevent us from movement. But in the case of REM sleep behavior disorder, those inhibitory mechanisms are not working, and we will act out our dreams physically, vocally, and in fact, we can hurt our bed partners. We can throw ourselves out of bed and hurt ourselves, hit the edge of the dresser. Mm-hmm. You can imagine, I've heard it all, I've seen it all, and it can be pretty horrible. And the patient who is experiencing this has no idea that this is going on. And if they're alone, they may not know it until they hurt themselves. But often the bed partner will move to the next room to stay safe. The thing to know about this is very treatable. And
Oh,
we
wow.
may treat it with melatonin to begin with. A medicine called Klonopin or clonazepam in very low doses sometimes can really eliminate this REM sleep behavior disorder. Anecdotally, I had a patient in Chicago whose wife woke up being choked, and it was serious. She ended up having to call an ambulance for her. I had no recollection of this, and in fact was dreaming that he was fighting off enemies and back in wherever he was in the past, and had no idea. So when I hear people talking about REM sleep behavior disorder, I take it very seriously, and it really should be treated. We don't want to wait till it becomes dangerous for the patient or for the spouse. Um, the other interesting thing about this was mentioned earlier, is that this is a risk factor for the future development of Parkinsonism. And can predate the onset of the actual diagnosis, which we base on motor symptoms, could be a decade or more. So in sleep laboratories or sleep centers, when people manifest REM sleep behavior disorder, they need, in my opinion, they need to be followed by either a general neurologist or a movement disorders neurologist to look for the future development of motor symptoms, where we can make a diagnosis and institute some early treatment.
And listening to you again, I just want to keep emphasizing that it becomes clear that in order to customize and fine tune how you use medication and lifestyle issues to maximize health is a very, very important dialogue between the individual with the problem and the physician. I can hear your ability to hear these different details and to be informed about how they can affect the neurologic system can allow people to fine tune a lot of issues. Another one that came up was the issue of leg twitching, interrupting sleep during the night, as to what that's all about, and are there any things that can be done about it?
Yeah, so leg twitching for the movement disorders neurologist or a sleep specialist would raise the specter of something called periodic limb movements of sleep. And actually very common in Parkinson's, and people with restless leg syndrome, which is another separate entity. And it does usually wake the patient up momentarily. The next day they feel very fatigued, and they're wondering, why are they so tired? Why are they so sleepy? Well, if your legs twitch every 15 to 20 minutes all night long, enough so that it wakes you up, that will definitely cause daytime fatigue and tiredness, and it will affect your sharpness. So that also, again, needs to be treated. Sometimes I have to say, Phil, that the stories are we don't know what's going on. In those situations, we may order an overnight formal sleep evaluation where patients are hooked up to all kinds of little wires, not too bad. They're videotaped, and we ask them to actually fall asleep so we can see what is happening during sleep, to really identify what the problem is, so we can target our therapies at it. Sometimes we hear the story and it rings a bell right away, and clinically we treat it, see if we can help. If it's diagnostically very difficult, a formal sleep study is not a bad idea.
Wow, that's helpful. Another one is somebody's talking about, well, we had two questions that came in. One was about frequency of urination, waking somebody on a frequent basis. That I would imagine that's pretty common. And the other is severe back pain, whether there's anything generic about Parkinson's and severe back pain during sleep.
Yeah, so back to the common things that can keep people awake who don't have Parkinson's. I mean, urinary frequency, urgency, that wake people up every hour, hour and a half, can be coming from enlarged prostates, other issues. That needs to be treated. So if that's a problem, we want to eliminate that for our Parkinson patients. So we might want to ask for a urology consultation, see a urologist. Let's make sure that all systems are go, which we think is really important in Parkinson's disease, and get that treated. There's some really, actually very good medications that can help with bladder control, and have the bladder not contract as frequently, which leads to getting up and going to the bathroom all the time. So it needs to be identified, and we refer out to the specialist, to the urologist, to help us with that.
Dr. Rizek, I had an interesting one here. Somebody wrote to us that their soulmate sleeps for long blocks of time, 8 hours solid sleep, and an hour after waking in the morning is exhausted again. Is that something that's familiar to you?
Excuse me. Well,
I don't know anybody who sleeps 8 hours at a clip on a regular basis in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
yeah, so I think the question is, are they really getting a restful night's sleep? Are they transitioning through the different sleep stages 4, 5, 6 times a night? And that's the real question. If they could be waking up, they could have sleep apnea, where they wake up to take a deep breath. They may not remember it. They may have periodic limited sleep or REM sleep behavior disorder, where they're really having fragmented sleep, so that, yeah, it appears to the person sleeping next to them or next room that they're getting 8 hours, but I would question that, whether there's a really restful, appropriate night's sleep.
So that might be a case that would warrant or would benefit from a sleep study, an overnight sleep study.
Absolutely. And the other common phenomenon that I encounter is that patients may wake up and feel pretty darn good. They have breakfast, take their Parkinson's medicines, and then they get very sleepy and need to take a nap. Well, the L-DOPA can make people tired. I mean, it can. The agonists, lots of the medicines we use can't possibly make people tired. Plus, if you have a big breakfast, a lot of times blood pressure can get lowered because all the blood flow goes to the digestive tract. We feel a little more fatigued. We feel like taking a nap in combination with the Parkinson's medicines. So we really need a detailed history, good communication. Sometimes I ask people to keep a log of what happens. What are they doing in the morning where they wake up great, but then an hour later they're tired? Doesn't make a lot of sense unless there's some other intervening variables that we need to identify.
You know what, Dr. Chris, let me interject here for a minute. One of the things that I'm learning from you, and that when I speak to people, is that they'll tell me that they have certain problems for a long time, and they don't think about sharing that with their doctor. And I think when somebody has an issue, they need to recognize it as soon as possible and express it. And that's what I think is super important, because then you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dr. Pallone and we have actually a checklist. Sometimes it's in our mind, especially now while we have to do telemedicine, but we have a checklist of both the motor and the non-motor features of Parkinson's disease. And we want an answer to each and every one of them, because people don't tell me, that they're maybe seeing things at night or misinterpreting their environment, having illusions, hallucinations. People are sometimes shy to tell me that they're having hallucinations, because I think that that may be a sign of craziness, and it isn't. It's usually a side effect of the medication, some things that we can fix. So we need to know everything, whether it's constipation, sleep issues, blood pressure drop, the whole thing, because Parkinson's is now a systemic illness. It isn't just about movement. It's about really everything we do in life that makes a difference, and for us to be healthy and functional. And I think, Alex talked about, keeping the body as in good shape as possible. I think that's great. I think, good diet, regular, consistent exercise, all those things help keep, I'll call it the space shuttle, what I call the body, in good shape, because all it takes is one loose screw in the space shuttle and it doesn't run very well. And it's the same thing with a Parkinson's patient. We need to keep the Parkinson's patients as well balanced. We call it homeostasis, keep things in balance and functioning well. And that minimizes the symptoms that a patient will manifest. If something is out of whack in the patient, let's say we have a urinary tract infection, the Parkinson's symptoms will get worse. And so when somebody calls me, I'll give you an example. I just saw the patient 2 days ago and they look great, but they call me and say, well, the tremor's terrible, I can't walk. The first thing I'll do is check labs. I'll check the urine and get a chest x-ray because Parkinson's doesn't change that fast. There's something else that's affecting the, I'll call it the spatial, the body, throwing the homeostasis, the balance off. And we need to be aware of that. Patients need to be aware of that. And again, communication, both Phil and Susan, what you said, talking to us, I usually squeeze it out of patients one way or another because I need answers, or I can pick it up, just by looking at a patient sometimes that I need to get more information. But it's really, if we don't know, if the doctors don't know what's going on, it's very difficult to help anybody. So
I think for those of us who are consumers of the care of physicians, we need to be sure we find physicians who want to dialogue with us, who want to take the time to hear and to care about the whole broad picture. And I think our responsibility on the end of the consumer is, I think it's Parkinson's and all of this stuff is my experience, highly variable from day to day and time of day. So keeping notes in preparation for meetings with your physician could be very helpful to both. But again, it comes out that you're an individual, a professional who likes to listen and learn and to interface your knowledge and your expertise with what someone's telling you is going on in their life day to day, hour to hour. So as the quote patient, we have to be sure we bring good data to the table to help solve these issues. I have another one for you
that's good.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, I like the way you put that, very succinct and it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more, I think, on my list. Somebody's asking about non-medicinal things that might be helpful for sleep issues, and they give a list of various kinds of light therapies, meditation, music, magnesium, melatonin, CBD, binaural beat music with delta waves. Any thoughts about any of these things?
I'll use so a lot of those things have not been scientifically and medically double-blind fashion tested. I think if we find something that's not harmful, that may help us. If we like listening to certain music and that helps us fall asleep, it's a great thing. Melatonin has been shown to be very helpful. I mean, we have to use the correct doses, and I sometimes go up to 12 milligrams a night, but I don't start there necessarily. I think CBD is essentially, from what I know, harmless, of course, in terms of terrible side effect. If it works, I'll speak for myself, I'm all for it. I don't think that's a problem, but I think we have to talk to our doctors. Look for things that we may not even think are affecting us. We like to, if somebody has a hangnail, they'll think it's related to their Parkinson's, but sometimes it's like, am I looking at my bills before I go to sleep, or did I just have an argument with my son or daughter, over something? And these are things that linger, worries, all those things can affect our sleep, and we have to try to minimize those disturbances in our homeostasis, in our emotional life, our psychological life, and our physical life as much as possible. I think those are the things. I think we have to be careful. People are selling things out there, strictly for commercial reasons that may not have any value. So I would talk to your doctor. I think they're the best people to consult, neurologists who really understand Parkinson's, whether something might be helpful or not.
Thank you. I found that very helpful, very meaningful. And again, finding the right physician who really has the knowledge, the experience, the dedication, and the preparedness to listen to your story, combined with your responsibility to bring the story with clarity and detail, makes for the best combination. Sue, I can't see faces, so I don't know if you're there and want to say anything.
Yeah. Hi. I am here. I'm here. And was there one more question about PD related to sleep apnea?
You are correct. You're checking them off.
Mm-hmm.
Someone writes in that they have a partner who sounds like their breathing stops episodically. They've got sleep apnea issues. And there was a question of, is there an interaction between Parkinson's and issues of sleep apnea?
Well, the answer to that is medically, no, there actually isn't. There's one of the non-Parkinson's related problems that leads to sleep difficulties, fatigue the night, very common to cause fatigue the next day, people actually falling asleep at their business meeting the next day. But it is not a part of or known to be one of the non-motor features in sleep of Parkinson's disease. But it is critically important to identify that and fix it, because it does affect your heart, it affects lungs, it can affect brain function, and
maybe immune system resistance as well.
Really everything. And it's really important to not ignore that. Sometimes if we do a sleep study, you can identify that. They can actually tell how severe it is, because they'll be measuring how many apneic episodes there are during the night. And sometimes it can be fixed very easily. Now they've got some devices to put inside the mouth that pulls the jaw forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to wear a big heavy mask on your face all night long to fix it, but it can make a huge difference in daytime functioning for people that have sleep apnea.
Great. Sue, anything else that we left out?
Dr. Rizak, is there anything else you want to leave us with?
I think, again, I would just emphasize again that it's important to talk to your doctor so that the doctor can figure out what is going on. Sometimes I find people who aren't sleeping well, it's related to a worsening of their Parkinson's symptoms. They haven't taken medicine for a while, they're stiff, they're slow, they can't turn over in bed, they can't get the comfortable position, or their tremor starts. And when the tremor starts, that tremor keeps people awake because two things. One, it's shaking, and second, it worries people to see that tremor. And so that can be fixed. There are strategies to handling that and taking care of it. So again, really important to talk to your doctor and don't be shy. Let him let him or her know what's going on. And a lot of things can be done for these problems, which make a huge impact on our functionality during the day.
Someone just texted in a chat question or comment that they take a cup of chamomile green tea 2 hours before going to sleep. I think that their comments suggest that it helps them with their sleep, but it increases their need to urinate during the night, go to the bathroom. How do you balance those two issues?
Well, it's very hard. You're gonna, stuff coming in, it's got to come out. But and I don't know. Green tea, from my knowledge, has got a lot of caffeine in it, so it's another. And I could be wrong. Could be decaffeinated, but I would probably reduce the amount of water you want to take in after about. Assuming you go to bed at 10. After 6, 7 o'clock, you want to really try to reduce the amount of water or food, because food has water in it that you take in, especially if you're sensitive to those things. If you're waking up to go to the bathroom to urinate frequently, you want to reduce that water intake after 6, 7 o'clock.
Wow, very helpful. Sue, is there anything else you wanted to throw in the pie?
I think that we are so blessed to know you, Dr. Rizak. And a lot of people don't realize that when they see you, they don't see you for 15, 20 minutes. They see you for as long as they need to be seen and for as long as it takes for you to help them. And that is one of the things that makes you so special. And a lot of people with Parkinson's, this is a lifestyle disease, and it needs more than a nose check, as Alex said before. So I don't want to get your phone ringing off the hook, but everybody that we have sent to you is enthralled by how they're feeling now. So
both Dr. Pallone and I share the same philosophy. We know that we have to listen, we have to respect, and we have to help treat patients with Parkinson's. And she came with me from Chicago, and I wanted her to come with me because we share the same philosophy. but it is really important. There are so many things that can be done to be able to help patients as long as we know what's going on, and it's as clear as possible. Sometimes we have to dig, but thank you. It's my honor to be able to, that's why I'm here. That's why I went into this field. We want to be able to help people, and we do our best at it.
Not just informative, Dr. Rizek, but inspirational and heartwarming to hear your level of caringness and spending this time and sharing your wisdom. So on behalf of myself personally and everybody else, a huge thank you. And pass that along to Dr. Pallone.
And Dr. Phil, I want to thank you for running the whole show. We couldn't have picked a better moderator. And right now, we'd like to end with a video of Alex Tresser's doing a 4-minute
Should I do our little sign off before we do that? We have a little commercial again about
and then
Vermont, or should we see Alex's piece first?
No. Do your sign off and then we'll end with the video.
Okay. So needless to say, I can see some of us and those, I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there I cannot see. I want to thank all of you for making this a together experience, because part of what's going on here is we realize we're not alone. There are other people out there dealing with the same thing. We're not crazy. It's not something to be ashamed of. Those are natural feelings, to feel ashamed and to feel like hiding. So it's important to know we're coming together, and we want to see your faces and we want to see you back. So thank you all, those who are participants in presenting and those who are back there listening and asking questions. Of course, we want to thank Sue for what she's done. This is huge. So Sue, amazing. Thank you from all of us. And we want to thank again our two corporate sponsors, Medtronic and Adamas, for believing in our work and helping bring people together to make ourselves healthier. That is amazing. And right after the seminar, I think we're going to be able to do this. There'll be a survey in people's computer inbox. We need your input because it's going to help us do better for you in the future. And that's what we're all about. And we want you to mark your calendars for June 14. Brunch again, Sunday morning brunch, locale.
Well, you'll tell us if you like this time, and also we've got to make sure that Zoom isn't having a Sunday outage.
Okay, so our plan is that Dr. Pallone and Dr. Rizek will be joining us again, along with another special guest, a man named David Leventhal, who started something called Dance for PD, a wonderful human being who's made a wonderful contribution to this, to our issues. So we hope all of you will join us on the 14th. And please stay posted at our parkinsonswellnessproject.org website. And from everybody at PWP, we thank you. And we're going to now see a piece from Alex. So thank you all. And Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Alex, we're going to run your 4-minute sitting combo video.
Okay.
Explain anything while it's running, be our guest, okay?
I think it speaks for itself.
We want to thank you very much, and we hope you'll come back and work with us again.
Of course. Thank you for asking me.
So here we
Alex,
go.
I'll see you tomorrow morning in my apartment.
Okay. People may misinterpret that, but yeah.
That's all right. We'll have a good time.
Okay.
So here we go. Hi, everybody. If you don't see the video, you can go to pdonthemove.com and then click on start your program and on exercise and try it. Thanks for joining us, everybody.